There's a tool for everything. Stay. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Jai Ma. Good job, Mr. Wire. You okay there? Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Devye Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindevyo Sarvalokaya Mangalam Stapakaya Chadharmasya Sarvadharma Sarupine Avatar Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Sarashiva Savarambam Shankarachara Majjamam Ashmarachara Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Gurureva Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Om Kali Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Papaharini Dharma Kamprade Devi Narayani Namastute Om Kali Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namastute Om Sri Ganeshaya Sharada Gurubhyo Namaha Jai Ma. So last week we had planned to speak on a group of names in the Kali Sahasranama, and 5 minutes before our 10 minutes maybe before scheduled to begin, Swami Sarvadevananda came from the Vedanta Society, and that was a wonderful surprise. And we were joking that he said, "Oh, Swamiji, you're just in time." And he goes, "Oh, what for what?" He says, "For satsang." I said, "What's that? Whose satsang? Yours?" He goes, "Okay." So then he always said, "Oh, I'll speak 15 minutes, then I'll go, and this is your talk." He's trying. One time he actually pulled that off. He spoke for 15 minutes, got up and left. But this time we were able to convince him, and I think he was inspired seeing this beautiful environment and spoke so beautifully on Holy Mother. That was on the day before Easter. So, on a slightly different topic, but not a different topic, this group of names of the Kali Sahasranama, we're now on we're finishing verse 14, sloka 14, verse 14 of the Kali Sahasranama, 1,000 names of Mother Kali. And the Kali Sahasranama 148, 49, 150, get it right, 154 verses, I think. And so the last, maybe 3 weeks ago, or we read, let me find here. We were talking about, it was Chanda, Chandavegini, Chandi, Prachanda, Chandika, these names, and these are names of the Divine Mother as very fierce, angry, intense forms. And then Prachanda Chandika, that was the main topic last time we spoke. That is a name attributed to Chinnamasta. And maybe you know the form of Chinnamasta, the form of the goddess that cuts her own head off. Right? It's a very deep, significant thing about the self-illumination and the waking of Kundalini. So it's in this flavor of names. And so some of the names are she who is the mother, she who feeds everyone. And the last group of names was about her smile and her beautiful expressions. But this is a bit of a switch. Now it's going to these kind of fierce symbols. The goddess's fierce energy, fierce Shakti, transformative, the transformative goddess. And so after this Chand, or is it, and then it was Kulasheta, Mahati, Wahoo, Bhashini, all these different expressions of Devi. Let me find it. And then at the end of verse 14, that's where we left off, was Sumit, no, I'm sorry, it's verse 15. Yes, please forgive me, I have a few. Prachanda, Chandika, Chandi, Chandika, Chandavegini. That's the last names. Prachanda, Chandika, this is Chinnamasta, Chandi, Chandavegini. And then we briefly started to speak about a group of names describing Ma's hair. So this is ultimately, this section is describing her iconography, but kind of fierce forms of her iconography. But hair is not very fierce, right? It doesn't seem. So hair has meaning. So we discussed a little bit about that the other week. And the name is su-keśī, mukta-keśī, dīrgha-keśī. I'll say the sloka. Prachanda, chandika, chandi, chandika, chandavegini, su-keśī, mukta-keśī cha, dīrgha-keśī, mahat-kucā. So su-keśī, keśī means hair. So this is the name that's going to be repeated. Su-keśī, mukta-keśī, dīrgha-keśī. And so su-keśī means beautiful hair, right? She who has very lovely, beautiful, wonderful, good hair, you know. And then mukta-keśī means she who has free hair. Mukta means unbound, right? And then dīrgha-keśī means she who has very long hair. So this is just, it could just be a description of her iconography. You know, you see in Kali images and paintings, usually you see kind of large flowing hair, right? And our Ma also has beautiful long hair inside. So it could just be describing her iconography. But yogis have said her iconography has extremely deep meaning. Now, one view, it could be that the deep meaning, the iconography is because of the deep meaning. Ma has all these tremendous significance and symbolism, and it's expressed in a coherent symbolism in Tantra, as her hair, her sword, and a garland of heads like this. There's another view that some scholars take, is that it's been reverse engineered. That there's some ancient primordial goddess, tribal goddess, some very fierce form of the ancient world has come down, and they're like, what are we to do with it? As good Hindus, as good yogis, as good sadhus, how are we to make sense of the symbolism, skulls and swords and corpses, and today's going to be lots of corpse imagery, right? And so they have given or assigned deep meaning to symbols that we don't know what they originally meant. Both could be possibly true, right? Whatever the case, as devotee of the Divine Mother, trying to understand the Divine Mother's nature, whether the image came from the meaning or the meaning was attributed to the image, and after it almost doesn't matter. For us, it has extreme significance. We look at it. We look at the image of the Divine Mother, the name of the Divine Mother. I don't know if that's going to work. Maybe. The names who are describing as a litany her image and her qualities. We look at her image. It also has a meaning. It has a language. We've heard this. You've maybe heard this iconoclastic. You know this term. And some religions are iconoclastic. It means they have a tendency to destroy images. For Islam is a iconoclastic religion. Most forms of Protestantism are an iconoclastic religion. They're against forms, images like this, right? Hinduism is described as iconoblastic, right? Anything, it's an image-making religion. It's an image-making tradition, right? And so the images has a language. A long time back, nowadays they don't come. I think we scared them off. But a lot of students used to come from the local junior colleges. The teacher in the religious studies course, we were on their list of places you had to go visit. A temple, a religious building outside of your tradition, and I knew, because I took that class, and I knew the questions that they were asked. So back in the day, so I knew I was a good person to answer the questions. But so they would come, and then there were interesting students, and then we also from a local Christian college would also come, and these are people who are studying for not just a ministry, for missionary work in Asia, and you know, so that's an interesting group there. You can see so it's, I think, almost like a reconnaissance mission, you know, trying to figure out, you know, so they're friendly, but slightly with a prejudice, hostile prejudice, like trying to find out and Kali Mandir is not like, it's not like just going to a yoga center or the Vedanta Society, or, you know, it's like a few Indian things. I mean, this temple, and we have the goddess and Shiva lingams and giant monkeys and elephant headed deities, you know. So it's a little overwhelming, especially if you're inclined to believe that these things are meaningless, right? There's even a verse that says that although they have arms, they cannot grab. Though they have feet, they cannot walk. Though they have eyes, they cannot see. They have mouth, they cannot. It's a biblical verse, dismissing imagery, right? They have mouth, they don't need anything, right? So these are meaningless things, right? All these symbols, and so realizing the prejudice that they were coming to the table with. I said, if like this is a little book, and if you don't know how to read English or hear Sanskrit transliteration, right? If you don't understand read English, then this would not have any meaning to you. But you may believe, I don't know how to read, but it has meaning. People went through all this trouble to publish it. Maybe it has some meaning, right? But imagine if you've never read anything, and you believe that there's no such thing as alphabet and words, right? So this is clearly foolish. And the fact that all these people are spending all this money on meaningless gibberish, just stuff on a page, it's stupid. These are idiots, right? So, nope, but actually, if you know the language, it must have meaning. Somebody took the, and if you take the time to learn it, and maybe we'll never learn. We have books and languages I'll never learn, right? But we still respect them. They're holy books. They have a nice picture of God on the cover, so we put them on the shelf carefully, right? Even though I'll probably never. We have books in Gujarati. I'm never going to read. God knows, who knows? I don't think I'll learn Gujarati in this life. Sai Chai Sarita and things like this. But we know that has some meaning. I just don't know the meaning. And there's people who they read, look, Swamiji, look what you have, this book. This is my mother tongue. It's like, and they start crying. It's so beautiful. My father used to recite this on Thursdays. Right? There's so much meaning if they know the language. So similarly, these images we see in Kali was her garland of skulls and standing on Shiva and wild hair and swords and severed heads like this. This has meaning. If you don't take the time to learn, to the person who knows it, some people come as like over today, some devotees came completely overwhelmed, seeing, oh my God, you have this image. Oh my God, look at the form of Kali you have. Right? It has meaning. So one example in talking to those missionary students, would-be missionary students, it's like what type of things that religious people would say about God, like God is omnipotent, which means all-powerful, right? Omniscient, which means all-knowing, right? Those type of omnipresent means all-pervading, right? All the omni words. One of my friends coined the term omni-wonderful, right? It's all good qualities to the extent like that. But if so, we have a book. She's omnipresent, omniscient. We also have avyaktam and nirlepa and all these different terms in Sanskrit. But you can also show it in an imagery, right? So one way, this is not an exhaustive description, but many arms could be seen as a way of saying or writing in images rather than words. The idea of omnipotent, very powerful. To say one is all-knowing, you could show many faces or many eyes facing all directions, right? So if you know that, it's like, and so people seeing images of the different weapons in Devi's hands. And the Chandi describes she has a sword and a club and a disc and these things must have some meaning. And people who know the meaning, like, the disc is that of discipline. The staff is that of discipline. The disc is that of time. The noose is self-control. All these different symbols have a very deep meaning. To one who knows the language of iconography, the language of Hindu symbolism. So, just having a statue with beautiful flowing hair, it could just be a beautiful statue, an ancient version of the goddess, the Divine Mother, with beautiful flowing hair. But it has also a language, right? And the tantras, the commentaries on the tantras, give us some hints into that language. One of the hints, it says that, especially with Kali, that in every strand of her hair is a jiva. Jiva means an individual soul, right? So we're all strands of her hair, right? So by saying it's su-keśī, that she's good, if you take that as a given, su-keśī means that we are all of us are strands of the Divine Mother's flowing hair, right? But it's su-keśī, right? Her hair is beautiful, right? It's good, right? Everything about Ma, even some fierce sides of her, which we'll read, are good. So it's hard. So this is this flowing, expansing universe is her wild, flowing hair, right? This is us, right? Every soul, and the goal of every soul is freedom, right? And this is in the next name, mukta-keśī. Her hair is unbound, right? Second here, get the names in front of me. Su-keśī, mukta-keśī cha, dīrgha-keśī. we began to speak a couple weeks ago of in study of mythology. There's one perspective, and also some academic. And I said I wasn't going to get too academic. That was my goal, right? And then our beloved friend Adi Keshav, he heard that on Facebook. He listened to the talk, and he said, "I know you're not going to." And he sent me a bunch of academic papers on the symbolism of hair. Like, sometimes you're destined to get academic, right? So, so one of my favorite authors, and some. Anyways, there's anthropologists have made a deep study of hair in Indian culture, in every culture, but in the mythological study, one thing we can think of, which we began to speak last time, is that the hair, like combing the hair or tying the hair, is a symbol of culture. Right, it's like before going out to a nice restaurant, you get dressed up and you do your hair, and you tie it back, or like even in our regular culture, it's part of being part of a civilized. And the more civilized, the more you have to be careful, right? To show up at a very important place without doing your hair. If you go to a job interview with your hair messy and down, right? Chances are you'll be judged because of it. The person doesn't take himself seriously. So even in our regular culture, hair has some meaning like that. And so the god is like Lakshmi and Saraswati. Lakshmi is wealth and prosperity and food and grains. These are Dana Lakshmi and all these different forms of Lakshmi, right? And Saraswati is art and music and language and wisdom and education, right? And we say, oh, these are Divine Mother. These are Divine Mother's forms. We bow to them. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Lakshmi Rupena Samsita. We bow to them again and again. We okay? Some have seen this. Lakshmi is always seen with bound hair. She has her hair tied up, right? And Saraswati is also usually depicted with bound hair. So although she's a goddess, she's been, if you excuse the language, domesticated. She's the domesticated goddess. She's part of society, right? And in a more, if you want to, this is not my qualification, but in more gendered studies and things like that, you would actually, you'd say that it's male domination, right? She's been controlled, right? It's like in the forest. Plants, as we began to speak last time, plants grow where they want in the forest. The forest is wild. She's the goddess. Kali is a goddess of the forest, right? But and tribals who worshipped her, right? If I can be bold and presumptuous to assume how the ancient world was and the ancient worship of the goddess, right? These are hunters and gatherers, and the earliest worshippers of the mother goddess, the great mother goddess. Kali is a remnant or a manifestation of that very ancient tradition, forest tradition. So nature is dangerous. It's beautiful. It's the mother. Without the forest, we get everything from the forest, but we're on her terms. We enter the forest carefully, gather what we need, go hunting or gathering, and carefully come back to safety of our village, safety of our home, right? But then people began to realize, if we're presumptuous to assume these things, that the seeds that we're gathering and the plants that we're collecting, we can also plant them where we want, within our property, within the village, within the homestead, right? And then and pretty soon they grow where we want. That could be seen. That's the beginning of the domestication of plants and domestication of animals, right? That's the control, and therefore, in a certain sense, the control of nature, right? Shown perhaps as a Lakshmi or Annapurna with tied hair, right? So we realize the farm is also divine. We bow. Without farms, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation. We wouldn't be able to eat. Yet we know she's divine, but she's under our control. And now it's getting to a seed was controlling of seeds, and that's a whole other issue. It gotten to extreme, almost obscene levels. Before it was understandable, now it's become obscene, right? The man's attempt to control the powers and movements of nature. So Saraswati is art. She's manifestation. She's like, but we control art. right? We control education and knowledge, right? Rather than worshiping her in awe and reverence. Now we worship her, but we control her. So she's power, right? The supreme powerful. But now, if we wield power, then we become powerful, right? And there's a term in Sanskrit, Shakti, we know, and Shaktiman, right? Shaktiman is the powerful. Shakti is power, and Shaktiman is the powerful, right? And there is a great danger. This is a foundational gendered conception in Hinduism, in modern Hinduism especially, that Shakti is feminine, and Shaktiman by language, by grammar, is masculine, right? So you can see this could go, it has gone a little dangerous, right? Because now Shakti is something to be controlled by man, right? And so you end up with images like, well, you think of you have Shiva, even the Divine Mother, the consort of Shiva, she's Parvati. She's the dutiful wife of Shiva, right? Lakshmi is the dutiful wife of Vishnu. Saraswati, in some form, the dutiful wife of Brahma, Lord Brahma. Right? And she's the power, but he's the powerful, right? But as we go through the 1,000 names of Kali, this is not the view of this text. This is not the general view of this form of the goddess, right? She's Shakti, she's the power, and she's power, and she's Shaktiman, right? She's also the powerful, right? It's like the forest is powerful for sure. It's power, but it's also powerful, right? It can never be, aspects of it can be fully under control, but never fully in our control, right? So here mukta-keśī could be, this is perhaps reverse engineering a meaning that may have not been intended, but I'm not the first to. Ancient rishis have commented on it, and modern mythologists and anthropologists, they're describing this as a possible way of understanding this mukta-keśī. She cannot be tamed. So Kali in the old tradition, she says she comes from the Vindhyavasini is one of her names. She comes from the Vindhya Mountains. Vindhya Mountains. Now you go to the Vindhyavasini temple. What's the Vindhyavasini temple? From Allahabad, it's only an hour and a half or so, 2 hours towards Benares. You can go a little bit, and you go to the Vindhyavasini. So you have this huge forest. Used to be a vast, uncontrolled, uncharted tribal territory. The government of India had not much control. Still has not that much control into the forest area. And the edge of it, this mountain, at the edge where it hits the kind of the foothills, there's a temple to Vindhyavasini, this beautiful form of the goddess, right? And you've been there, yeah, very beautiful. So what people from all over the cities, all over the plains, go to her and make offerings to her. Or think about this in ancient times, if it's as ancient as we think, that temple. People are coming to the edge of a dangerous forest, right? Only the tribals would go in and collect stuff and come back out and sell things that they wood and herbs and things like that from the forest. Right? Most people, they go and they're doing puja to that goddess at the edge of the forest, right? So there in Vindhyavasini, she's a beautiful goddess. She has her own tradition, but Kali is always connected to she who's from the Vindhya mountain, this forest jungle tradition, right? So she's the untamed nature as well. So she's Prakriti, as Kali is seen as the mother goddess is seen as nature. She's untamed nature, but she's more than nature. She's also infinite awareness and consciousness that also cannot be controlled, thought of, put into categories, tied up in human language and conceptions. Mukta-keśī. Holy Mother, Sharada Devi, she loved to have her hair, her women disciples and niece and like that, they would comb her hair, and and braid her hair. It's a very enjoyable, relaxing thing. Women and girls would do each other's hair like this, and she loved to have it done. And especially Lakshmi Devi, her niece, Lakshmi Devi became a great guru, Vaishnava guru in her own right, which is wonderful. And as a young girl, she'd braid Holy Mother's hair, sitting, but it would always come undone, right? They'd braid it, and she enjoyed it. It feels very nice. And in the sun, she'd tie her hair like this. And then it said, "Mother, your hair is always coming undone." right? It never hold. And they said, and I don't know if Holy Mother said it or somebody said about her, because it's because you're mukta-keśī, right? Yeah, you are an incarnation of that goddess that can't be controlled or who has flowing hair. There's a deity in Dakshineshwar village. From Dakshineshwar village is named after. Now we know the famous Kali temple in Dakshineshwar, but it was called Dakshineshwar before, because there's a Shiva, ancient Shiva done by a local king called Baba Dakshineshwar. He's the Lord of the South. Lord of the South. Yeah, Jaima. Lord of the South. Come, don't sit on the concrete. Come over, sit over here. Just be careful with the wire. I don't want it to be cold. You okay? You can sit. There's cloth over here. Yeah, there's over here. You can sit more comfortably. When you come closer and let the people in. We're careful with the wire. Yeah. Thank you. And so this Baba Dakshineshwar, Thakur went, we have records of him going to see. It's a beautiful Shiva Lingam. Now a very poor temple. The people there don't get much pilgrims. But just across from it, I don't know how old, there's a temple to mukta-keśī. It's a Kali, beautiful bright blue Kali. Very beautiful. And called mukta-keśī. So, and if you go there, I was quite surprised when I went there. I look on, there's a little plaque on the outside of it. And it says this, in the loving memory, there's a plaque, loving memory, and it's, I got to look like a familiar name, by her loving daughter, Elizabeth Usha Harding. Right, so Usha has a plaque in the name of her mother on the side of the mukta-keśī temple, and Deborah has a plaque to her father, I think, on the Baba Dakshineshwar temple. It's the only plaques that are there, and once in a while it gets painted over, and they come and clean it up and point it out. So now I go every time to have mukta-keśī's darshan and to see the plaque of Usha's mother. It's a very beautiful temple. But I always know whenever I go there, it says, but although her name is mukta-keśī, right, a lot of images are carved with a top knot, and then partially because this way you can put a wig on the deity. It's easy to tie like that. But they don't have flowing hair. I'm going, her name is mukta-keśī, but she has her. Every time I go, they tied up your hair, ma. Although they think they've tied up your hair. You can never really be controlled like this. But I think it's interesting that the famous deity of mukta-keśī in Bengal has not flowing hair, but mukta-keśī. And then the third name is dīrgha-keśī. Here, dīrgha means long, kind of long hair. So this is an image. So she has beautiful hair, wild. You can say unbound hair, but you can also say wild hair, right? That's our free, liberated, wild hair, and dīrgha-keśī, beautiful, long hair. Another point about in the literature that trying not to get academic, in the academic literature he sent me, they point out also that in every culture is a little different. India has a thing that generally, like you said, women have their hair tied. And untied hair has meaning, right? It has a cultural meaning. It has a language to it. Even that has language, right? And also, like you see, like, he has a shaved head, right? I have dreadlocks. These things have meaning. People know that, that's just a weird haircut. They must be hippies or Hare Krishnas or Rastafarians or something. They don't know Buddhists. I mean, people know something, but in the right context, this has very specific meaning. Shaved head with a sika has meaning. Shaved head with a sika that's tied has a meaning. Sika is a tuft of hair. Shaved head with a sika that's untied has a meaning. Long hair has a meaning. Long hair untied has a meaning. Long hair tied up has a meaning. Dreadlocks have a meaning. Untied dread. All these things have meaning. People in the right context. So one thing about unbound hair has another thing, is that during a woman's period, the hair is usually untied, right? And at the end of the period, then it's washed and tied back up. So actually, seeing a woman, that means that. So actually, unbound hair is in both for men and women. Unbound hair usually means you're separated from society. This is in ancient times. It's still common, right? So my having wild dreadlocks means I'm separated from society, right? It means I'm actually ritually impure. This is not a ritually pure haircut, right? So that means that sannyasis are not part of the regular ritual culture of purity and like that. We have the look of something impure, right? Even the word dread, when the Rastafarians began to use dreadlocks or to lock their hair, a protest and as like this. There's oh, that's dreadful, right? And therefore dreadful locks, right? These are dreadful people, right? Just having this hair, the look itself is like, but it became purposely, as a protest against a certain aspect of society. So a sannyasi also has, with long hair, the long hair sannyasis like this and dreadlocks like this, means that we're not part of society, right? Maybe for a temporary period or for a long period. And so the unbound hair also has that meaning during a period when one is separated from the ritual structures of the day. This is burning. Can you pull that carefully a little bit away from the fire? It's got a light on fire. You can put it. Thank you. Yeah, we can put it on the floor. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Is that okay? There you go. So it also means that it is by society standards, right, impure, right, not part separated. But Kali, coming with long, wild, unbound hair, could also have this meaning, right? She is not part of society, right? And she's not playing by the rules of the society. The rules may have a meaning for it. I'm not qualified or inclined to go into that discussion, but Kali with her long, unbound, untied hair has that meaning also. She's not part of society. By society's rules, she's impure. Right, the goddess is bones and dead body. These are all symbols of impurity, right? In cremation ground, she says in cremation, the symbol of impurity, right? She's the meat-eating goddess. The symbol. This is the most low-class thing. This is tribal. This isn't sophisticated, right? These are symbols of that. But so whether or not she's actually impure, whether she's actually uncivilized, whether she's actually violent, and she actually is a symbol, the goddess of death and destruction, as Wikipedia says, may or may not be, right? She's showing that she's beyond these categories. She's not part of these. The idea of purity and impurity is a human structure. It's a society structure. Maybe legitimate structure, but a society structure nevertheless, right? This is the battle between Daksha and Shiva. Daksha Prajapati Daksha, his job was to create society. So he made rule society, right? And Shiva, what is he? He also has wild hair. He walks around naked. He's covered in cremation ash, smoking ganja. These are all things that society doesn't look very happily upon, right? And so Daksha is like the worst possible person in the world. Right, not realizing he's the supreme, he's the reality behind all the structure that's been built upon it. The structure has its. Daksha had a good job to do; he did it very well, but he got caught in the structures of society and what's pure and what's impure. And Shiva always broke, as Bhikshatana Shiva, like he broke that. So this could be one meaning, and people have used this interpretation that this image is showing an opposite view of what society considers good and pure, right? Even Draupadi, right? When she was pulled in front of, when she was the most audacious, ridiculous scene in popular religion, when you have five basically world monarchs, right, get tricked in a dice game, get drunk and tricked in a dice game, and lose their kingdom, lose their own freedom, and eventually, then what do? They bet their wife. Right. What could be more ridiculous? That shows you the audacity of Shakti and Shaktiman gone too far, as if Draupadi is something to be sold like this, right? And they lose their wife, right? But Draupadi, there's a 2-volume book called The Cult of Draupadi. Draupadi has been seen as an incarnation of the Divine Mother herself, right? It's symbolic. Like there's devotees of Draupadi, worship her as a manifestation of Kali, right? And Draupadi in the story. We know that she was pulled, and then they tried to disrobe her in public, right? And then she cried out to Krishna, and Krishna gave so much cloth. It's a very famous story, right? What we don't usually think is that there's a lot to the story, right? The Mahabharata is an extremely messy text, and this is one of those really messy scenes. Exactly, this is the cause of everything. So when they dragged her, she was not present. They had to go get her. Send somebody to go get her. Where was she? She was separate. She had her hair untied. This means that she was during her period, right? So this, for a woman to be pulled in public and disrobed during this time, it was extremely disrespectful. It was meant as an extreme act of disrespect to her and to the Pandavas, right? And her response, of course, she was protected by Krishna, as we believe, right? But then she said, "I shall not tie my hair again until all the Kauravas have been slaughtered," right? And she challenged her husbands, right? He said, so this was her big, this is a very big vow. We don't usually think about it, but it's in the Mahabharata, right? Until this offense that was done against me, until you guys fix it, right? I shall keep my hair untied, which is considered once again a sign of so these are all in the image of Ma's unbound hair. There's a lot. She's it could be seen as she's furious at this treatment of her. But it's mukta-keśī. What is it? Su-keśī, mukta-keśī, dīrgha-keśī. Long hair. Dīrgha means long. And so it could be, we start to discuss what long hair could mean in the image of Kali. It's been discussed is long hair. Somebody who has long hair is somebody who's been around a long time, right? So I have my hair is down to my waist. I say, oh, how many years? People first think, how many years did that take, Swamiji? They always ask, right? If you have long hair, how many years did it take? Right, and for sannyasi, when we shave our head at one point, and then so the longer the hair means, oh, he's been a monk a long time. That's a sign. Right? So it's a sign of age, right? But it's also, young girls have long hair, right? So a long hair means that it both means that she's ancient, right? And she means that she's a young girl, both things, right? So this could long hair, ancient, beautiful. It means wild. It's a symbol of the forest. It means young. It means old, right? And also, one of the flavors that the commentaries give is that she's to have long, beautiful, unbound, and long hair. Means it's been, if you put it into a sentence, she's had her hair, her beautiful hair has been unbound for a very long time, right? It's been this way a long time. It means she's been this way a long time. The goddess has been like this forever, right? We've created this ridiculous structure on top of her, right? But we'll see what she does with it, right? So su-keśī, mukta-keśī cha, dīrgha-keśī, mahat-kucā. So here it breaks the imagery to mahat-kucā. Mahat-kucā means large breasts. This is most goddesses are seen in most paintings like this, but Kali is often not seen. She's in the Chandi. Kali appears as an emaciated old woman, right, with skin and bones, with her bones piercing her skin even, right, very frightful, like Chamunda is one of her forms, right. But here is saying, but that same goddess is also here described as this large breath. And here is not a sexual image. Large breath is a motherhood image, right, that of nurturing and motherhood. There's a story with Kali, because these are names of Kali. We know when Kali manifests in the Puranas, she manifests an extreme burst of uncontrolled energy to accomplish something dramatic, right? Usually, some horrible demon has taken form. And at a certain point, she is unleashed, right? Durga or Chandi or some form manifests a very fierce form, right? And in that blast of energy, that's not easy to control, right? And so at a certain point, once the enemy has been destroyed, once the demon has been killed in the story, right, once our own anartha, some unwanted thing that we're trying to overcome, has been overcome, that energy she's mukta-keśī, she's not controllable, right? So how do you control? So Shiva's job is somehow or another to preserve the universe in his own way, although he's a destroyer. So in some stories, he does many different things in different stories in the different Puranas to control, or not to control, it's control because she's not controlled, but how to calm her down, right? And so one story in very famous in Bengali literature is that he lays down amongst the corpses. She's killing corpses that are already dead. She's just in that blood fury of the passionate destruction. And then so Shiva lays down, and then she's walking to the corpses. She steps onto Shiva, and that's a different feeling. It's not a normal corpse on the battlefield, right? And she looks at it, oh my God, I've stepped on Shiva, right? Stepped on her husband. So you can see this story is also about like wild, but immediately you have to domesticate her, make her a good wife again. It's like, oh my God, I can never touch my husband with my feet, right? And we worship Kali standing on her husband, right? She's always touching her husband eternally. That moment of it, that's the thing. This view, the Bengali devotional view, is very beautiful, right? And that she's, oh my God, and she stops destroying, and she sticks out her tongue and bites her tongue. It's a typical symbol of shame, or like what have I done, like that. So that's something. The stories are there, and there's a lot of Ramprasad poems that have described these. It's a common theme in the devotional literature of Bengal, right? But we worship continuously Ma standing on Shiva, so that's not the worst thing that's ever happened to Shiva, is having. So I think that story is itself a bit of an attempt to control the uncontrollable, to tame to tie up the hair of one whose hair is untied, right? Not possible ultimately. But in another story, she's killing another demon. Let me get my papers here. Yeah. I forget. I thought I wrote it down. I forgot the name of the demon. It's not one of the. It's not one of the main stories. It may be which Purana I'm forgetting, but Shiva not knowing what to do. And in the Devanki Dev Mahadev movies or the show, they show Shiva. Oh, this work. I've done this before. He goes, lays down, and she looks at him and screams some, shrieks at him and walks around him. It's not going to work this time. You tried this trick last time. I'm not going to step on you and stop my thing. She's not finished yet, right? So then he tries something else. Right, so he becomes this little tiny baby, and lays in the middle of the field of the carnage, right? And she's swinging her sword about, and then she sees this little tiny baby, right? And that awakens a different shakti in her, right? And she immediately calms down, and she takes Shiva and suckles him, right? And so that's a very beautiful story, because the motherhood it's not, but also you can see this is also could be interpreted as a different type of domestication. One is through the view as wife would never touch her husband, never calm down, right? Now as mother, Other forms there's other Puranas where Shiva lays down, it doesn't work. She walks by, sees baby Shiva, she just laughs and goes around him. I know this trick, and now it's really a big time. Then Shiva, Kali is not controlled, but she chose not to be controlled in that story, in order to teach a certain tantric principles and practices. Very interesting lila. But in the story and some people consider this one of the forms of Mahatata, who suckles Shiva, right? As it becomes, Shiva becomes like a baby and awakens extreme motherhood, right? There's another story in the also connected to Tada and Tadapitam, where after the churning of the ocean, the poison came up. Shiva drank the poison, and he was dying from the poison in his throat. And so he says Kali or Tada Parvati became Tada or Kali, and suckled him, and the milk curdled the poison, and that's the blue, in some versions like that, right? The version of the same type of scene. And you've seen some paintings maybe of like Kali or Tada holding a little baby Shiva, right? Like a little baby suckling. And so this also is once again, trying not to get academic, right? But what I call fake Hindu studies, right? Which is what I studied in school, and a lot of people studied in school, fake Hindu studies, which is people looking at stuff that has nothing and coming up with cool ways of analyzing it and conceptualizing it. But it is cool. It's all kinds of interesting ways to think about stuff. It probably has nothing to do with reality, or maybe something to do with reality. But anyway, this is we did this for a while. But so so they have this. They've devoid. Some scholars have used this term, tooth goddess and breast goddess, right? Once again, you take a bunch of stuff and let's analyze it and put it in categories and figure out what it means, right? Whether or not it ever meant this is way reverse engineered, I think, right? But still, sometimes it's an interesting way to conceptualize something, right? And he says that I forget the name of the scholar, and if I said his or her name, people probably would get upset that I'm quoting them. I have to be careful online. I know. I think I do know the name, but I can't say it because I'll get death threats. Probably is it even quoting these people? Not popular among certain Hindu groups, but it's an interesting point. So it says that I said tooth goddess and breast goddess, right? So a fang goddess, right? Like Chamunda, and Chinnamasta. They're very fierce, and you can see there's some very fierce goddesses all over the world, in India, but also all over the world. So these are tribal deities. These are jungle deities, and they're deities. They're protecting deities. They're almost. Are they deities or demons? They're appeased, not worshipped very often, right? People go to the forest to make blood sacrifices at the end of the forest, right? To appease, so that the poison, that plague and pestilence doesn't come, that children don't die of a natural death. It's like these are very fierce forms of these are, and you can think of it. These are extreme. The powers of nature are fierce, right? Childhood disease is real, right? These things. So the worship and recognition and worship, perhaps with a little bit of fear of these powerful forces of nature, powerful divine forces as divine, I think is a very powerful thing to meditate upon, right? And then the breast deities, these are the nurturing form that we think, like Lakshmi and Saraswati and Annapurna and Vrinda Devi and Ganga Mai and Yamuna Devi, and these are pantheon of then it becomes, you start expanding into like was it Kuan Yin and Mary, and these are forms of Divine Mother that are extremely motherly, right? So here in a group of Prachande, Chandika, Devi, all these extremely fierce names, right? And she who's not tameable, mukta-keśī. There's this name that just gets shoved in. It doesn't fit any of this cluster of names, right? Of that she's has large breasts, meaning that she's that same goddess we're talking about, this fierce form we're meditating upon, the untamed nature and the unlimited consciousness and unlimited power. She's our mother, right? She's the same goddess we're worshiping as Lakshmi. She's Mother Mary. She's Saraswati, right? It's not different. She's our nurturing mother. There's a text, a tantric text called Kapurari Stuti, Kapurari Stotram. This is an important Kali text, very extreme. The imagery is very tantric in this text, and it describes the sadhana of Kali is going at midnight into a cremation ground, right? And it describes it in a very sexualized way. But the yogis have known, actually this has nothing to do. This has to do with Kundalini awakening, right? And it says one must be in union with their Shakti. All this means you have to find a sexual partner and go into the cremation ground for some tantric circle. People do that and they interpret this meaning like that, but that's not that's like, it may be the meaning people are doing. There's different schools of Tantra that will interpret the same verse in different ways. But in this age, it's probably not the safest meaning to interpret. So the Siddhas have commented on this text, and they say that Shakti, his Swashakti, one's own Shakti, right? One's own Shakti in regular life, that could be one's wife. Right. This is from the male perspective, right? But Swashakti also means one's own, means the power within oneself, right? This tantrics would say this is called Kundalini, right? So in union with his Shakti, or her Shakti was the awakened Kundalini. But it doesn't say, it says large hipped and large breasted Shakti. So this is the tantric imagery and that's given. But the yogis have said this means, who is it? These are symbols of motherhood. This is not only we want to have children, that's another thing. No, we're her children. I mean, it's not that we want somebody to give birth to our children. That's one way people are interested in. No, this is recognizing she's our mother, right? This whole universe, everything has been born from her, right? So in the middle of this long list of fierce names, and next group of names even fiercer. Lots of corpses in this, right? And then you have this symbol of motherhood, right? So this is the one we're talking about. It's the ancient goddess, right? The mother goddess of the world, of the ancient peoples, that's come down into modern culture and Hindu culture. But she's also, for the tantric, for the yogi, for the sadhak, she's the Kundalini. So all these names will also be interpreted, have to also be interpreted from that perspective also. She's the mother. She's the mother of everything that also dwells within us. So with that, we have to go into the next cluster of cool names.
6 that I open.
You can
come back and
you can come back and check it out and make sure. Preta-deha-karṇa-pūrā, preta-pāṇisumekhalā, preta-sāna, priya preta, preta-bhumi-kritā laya. This is a very nice cluster of names. This is not the cluster like people say, so you're telling your parents, where'd you go? I went to this temple. Well, I'll tell you, she's the first thing we look is that she has earrings made of corpses of embryos. That's a good way to start. So we have to take these carefully. The iconography of Kali can be very bewildering, right? One thing that the ancients and the tantrics have held that this world is a world of duality, right? Even the core image that we worship in the temple of Kali, you have Shiva show up here. Shiva is supreme consciousness. Kali standing on him, manifesting him, right? 1 foot forward means she's manifesting. She's not saying she's walking on Shiva. She's expressing Shiva, right? And then we've talked about this in the previous talks that the one manifests through vibration. That's the sound Om in Vedanta and Veda, like this. That differentiates, the one sound differentiates into many sounds, the one vibration into many vibrations, and all names of these are the letters of the alphabet that represented by the skulls and heads on her necklace. We've talked about this. We have them recorded. If you want to go into we've done many hours into these discussions of that symbolism, right? But it's how the one becomes many. But as soon as it manifests, what happens? The one becomes many. The one has to become two first, and the two becomes many, right? So the two, of course, male and female. That's a simple duality, Purusha Prakriti, like this. But here we get more practical, experientially dual. Two means the world of duality. The world of so we say the world. We can we live in the world of duality. We live in the world of multiplicity, right? There's not just two things. There's all kinds of things. There's not just two types of people. There's a billion type of people, or more. I don't know how many people there are, but there's a lot of them, right? And at least more than two types of them for sure, right? So the world, by saying the world of multiplicity, but in a certain sense, it's the world of duality, because duality is the extremes. You have light and you have darkness, but you also have infinite shades in between there, right? You have good and you have bad, and you have infinite shades. You have birth. These are two extremes. You have birth and death, but not just birth, and you also have life in between them. There's all kinds of shades between birth and death. You always birth and death, the cycle of birth and death. Birth, young age, young adulthood, right? Junior high school, first girlfriend, first boyfriend. I mean, there's a lot of stages before first breakup, right? SATs. There's a lot of stages before death. It's not just birth and death, right? But to say the world duality is saying the world by describing the extremes, right? You're describing every variety, every possible variety, and so this is what immediately comes. This one hand she holds. She has two mudras, abhayam and varada, giving fearlessness and giving boons, right? These are the good side of the equation, right? And the other extreme, you have a severed head and a sword, right? You can say this has much symbolism, but let's take it at the simple symbolism first. This is death. This is suffering. This is war. This is sickness. This side is health. This is prosperity. This is youth. This is peace. But life is not just that. And actually, it's described that Kali has 18 arms, right? So you're only seeing the top two, and the top two and the bottom two, right? So it's just hard to paint all these arms. But she doesn't have 18 arms. She has 10,000 arms. Other mantras say Patangara Devi has 10,000 arms. And Patangara Devi is a Shakti of Kali, not bigger than that. So like within Kali, there's one of her spark Shaktis of Kali has 10,000 arms, and 10,000 heads with ferocious 10,000 lions. So you can see there's a lot in the simple image of Kali. We're only seeing a little bit, as much as we can grasp iconographically, and mentally and conceptually. We're trying to grasp her. So she is the full spectrum, the extremes and everything in between. Namaskar, namaskar. Oh my goodness. So one thing, and this becomes. Please come closer. Namaskar. Hari. We're reading Kali Sahashranam. It's for you. You want to sit here, sir? You can. Welcome to. We're comfortable. We have a little bit of space here. So by saying that she's become the world duality means the world of full multiplicity, right? And so another aesthetic type of approach, if you look up at the sky, right, you see the sun and you see the moon. These are two. So Shankaracharya has one mantra. He says, all these gods and goddesses I don't know. Maybe they exist, maybe they don't. How do we know any of them exist? The scripture says so. We have no other independent form of... Indra is god of heaven. How do we know that? Have you seen Indra? Has your father seen Indra? Nobody's seen Indra, right? But we believe it, right? So he says there's different texts, he says different things. This is one mood. He says, but this I know. The sun I see, the earth I see. Today's Earth Day, that's a good day, right? The sun is my father, the earth is my mother, right? This is simple. We start from that, right? He has beautiful hymns like this, if we believe these are written by him, right? So, but also looking at the sky, you don't just have the sun, you just have the moon, right? And so the moon has been taken to symbol of, the sun is the symbol of the father in the sense of awareness, consciousness, purusha. And nighttime, in the darkness, in the other side, we see something has been conceptualized as feminine, the moon. And so the moon is very much the symbol of the goddess, right? But the moon is not also just one, just like the sun and moon are different. But actually the sun and moon is actually, when you see the moon, you're seeing the sun only, right? You're seeing reflected. So even though we think of it, there's not much, we could say, oh, opposite, sun and moon. They're not opposites. They're not even close opposites. They're almost identical, right? So, but similar. So when you see the sun, your moon, you also. When you see the moon, you don't see one moon, right? Tonight is Ekadasi, right? So it's 11. So you have not much of a moon. In 2-3 days, the moon will be gone. You won't see it. At least we won't see it. Not it won't be gone. You won't see it. So the full moon and new moon are very different, right? A little poetical nature, and people's even emotional nature are very much affected by the moon cycles. Between full moon and new moon, you can't get more opposite. But nothing's happened. It's the same moon, right? This reflection of life from our perspective, we see it as different, right? So similarly with the goddesses, if the moon is taken to be the symbol of the mother goddess, right? We see two extremes, or seeming two extremes, right? In the full moon, Purnima, and Amavasya, the new moon. So on Purnima, there are certain types of goddesses that are worshipped on Purnima, the full moon. Lakshmi Puja is done. Lakshmi Puja, Annapurna Puja is done. Sri Chakra Puja is done. Lalita Tripura Sundari, right? They're symbols of fullness, right? Of nurturing, of nature at its fullness, as extremely mother-centric, motherly. But the full moon, on the new moon, there's another set of goddesses, or it's the same moon, it's the same goddess also. So we do Kali Puja on Amavasya, the new moon. That's coming up on Tuesday, right? Very auspicious. Amavasya on Tuesday is super auspicious. Her day of the month is Amavasya, and her day of the week is Tuesday. So this is very unique. With Dakshineshwar, they get 100,000 people on that when that happens. Huge crowds come on that combination. So, Purnima and Amavasya are the same but very different. The mood is different. The experience is different from our perspective. So, Lalita Tripura Sundari, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Mahakali, Prachanda Chandrika from last week's names, right? These fierce forms, that are worshipped on Amavasyas. Dhumavati is worshipped on Amavasya. These are the deities that are worshipped, right? They're not different deities. They're just a different experience of the one mother, right? But the difference is from our side, not from her side. The moon is the moon, right? The sun is the sun, right? We see different, and so this little cluster of names, this little cluster of names will be in this. This is a little bit on this the Amavasya side, right? So while Lakshmi is worshipped in fields of grains, right, and her symbols is this banana tree full of fruit, flowing rivers, right, dripping honeycombs. These are the symbols. Sugar cane, right? These are the symbols of her. Kali, the very first name of the whole text was the first word of the Kali Sahasranama. Anybody remember? Smashan. Right, the Lalita Sahasranama starts with Shri, right, auspicious, right, prosperity, glory, wealth, happiness, success, Shri. And then the second word is Mata, mother, right? So the first name of Kali Sahasranama is Smashan, right, cremation ground, right? So the mood's going to be different, but Lalita Sahasranama, Kali Sahasranama is not different goddess, different mood, different aspect of the goddess, right? The different extreme, you could say. So this cluster of names, these are some of her famous iconography of like we really talked about severed heads. Now we're going to talk about severed hands and corpses. So we mentioned at the beginning of our discussion, there's a language to it. We shouldn't take it exactly literally. We should understand the language of what these has to mean. And the question can sometimes come, scholars and pundits and tantrics, and like they're giving all these interpretations of the things. It's like, oh, she sits on a corpse. Well, that must mean. It has to mean something, so we'll make it mean something. Right. Thank you. Not I. There we are. Because the thing, well, most common people aren't going to think, when they don't think of all these things. But actually, this text is not a common text, right? And this is and that's just a little. We have to be careful because it's not meant to be. It's a Gupta text. It's not meant to be described openly. It's meant, and actually in the beginning, a year ago when we first started Kali Sahasranama, there's all these names that it's revealed within lineages, within families, and protected. Like this, she's a woman from a noble family. A noble family woman doesn't go into public. This is the language that is being used. It means it's meant to be private, right? And so we've been a little careful because devotees are asking to. We've been, we're at a Kali temple. We've been speaking of Bhagavatam for years and years and years, and we never mentioned Kali at Kali Mandir. So we've taken a text that revealed different aspects of Kali we can discuss, right? But we're doing so carefully, a little bit. We're describing ways yogis have interpreted without over describing, without over revealing, both because most of these things are beyond our level of understanding, right? But also it's what can be spoken in a general audience we have to be careful. There's a Kashmiri, I may have mentioned this before. There is a Kashmiri. Abhinavagupta wrote a text on the 12 Kalis. Kashmiri Shaiva has a very advanced conception of Kali, very, very deep philosophical, psychological aspect of Kali. And there was a saint, a pundit, who said, I shall write a commentary on Abhinavagupta's 12 names of Kali, these 12 verses, right? And I forget if he had a dream or a vision or something like this, but mother appeared and says, I thought you loved me. You're my son. I thought you loved me. He said, of course I love you. What happened? You're going to pull me in public and strip me down on the street corner? And he immediately threw away his notes. He wasn't. Not everything's meant to be. Some things are meant to be private, not broadcasted publicly. So we'll be careful what we can say, what's appropriate to say within our understanding and within appropriate. Preta-deha-karṇa-pūrā. This is the first name of this cluster. This is verse 16, name 110. Right? Preta-deha. So preta means comes from para-ita, means to go, right? This is where the word comes, right? To go away, right? So that means one who's gone is preta, right? Comes in the word. But when we say, oh, he's gone, like that means somebody's passed away. We even use it in English. Oh, he's left us, right? He's gone. They've passed or they've left, right? So it means somebody who's died, right? So preta. But in popular Hindu culture, preta has come to mean something specific, right? Usually it's almost like the equivalent in Buddhism of like a hungry ghost, something like that, Actually, in Buddhism, the hungry ghost is called preta in some schools of Buddhism. So it's like, it's not even like a hungry ghost, it's like exact. But so we have like, Shiva has pretas and bhutas, right? Ghost and spirit. So preta could be translated spirit, something, or some ghost or some troublesome type of character. That's one meaning, right? But here the original meaning means departed, deceased, dead, and in use here because it's describing iconographical details of Kali. It's being used meaning not as a ghost or hungry spirit, but as a dead body, right? I guess we say corpse, right? So, and in the Lita Sahasranama says Panchapreta is his own word, something like that. That she sits on 5 corpses, right? So but here it uses the word preta for also Panchabrahma, on five Brahmas, different things like that. This guru, everything okay? Nobody? Oh, that's good. Everybody else out here. We can keep talking.
Is that passed?
What?
Wanted Macaulay has to come.
Oh, we haven't got there yet. So here, preta means is being used within context to mean a dead body or corpse, but a dead body or a corpse, it's being used okay. Preta means dead body, but dead body doesn't mean dead body. Dead body has meaning within the symbolism of the text, right? So we'll go as we go into it. We'll go more into what as much as we can. I don't think I'll get through the whole cluster of names, but we'll do what we can. So it says preta-deha-karṇa-pūrā. It means this is what do you say in English? I lost the word. I was going to say, the ears, the rings and earrings. Sorry. Sometimes you have to, I get myself there, don't worry. I just have to give me a little time, I'll get there. Those earrings, what do they call those rings in your ear that you put? Earrings, right? So she has earrings. What are her earrings? Her earrings are corpses. And so some paintings actually show this. Some dramatic paintings of Kali will have little corpses either through the theater or pulled, it depends on the Smashan Kali in your room, is that
little babies.
That's another thing. But the corpses are. So that's a very peculiar symbol. In the Devi Bhagavatam, when Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva finally attain the supreme abode, Devi Puram, the supreme abode, the Divine Mother, they find her seated as Bhuvaneshwari Devi on a pulsating Sri Yantra. That's the universe, quite something, right? And when they finally get up to her, when they notice something very interesting, she has dangling Sri Yantras on her earrings. This is once again, this is a different. So her earrings are Sri Yantras. The text says she has sun and moon earrings, right? And actually, we have for a little while one devotee out of gold carved little tiny. I think they dropped. They were just kind of stuck on was blue tag, and I think they eventually dropped when we were changing her jewelry or something. She had a little sun and moon on her, because these are all symbols. These are all but this is another. So she has different. Some people have more than one earring. She has one of her earrings is the corpses, and it goes even more. Sometimes it's described as embryo corpses. You can't get more But once again, we're talking about the world of duality, right? And to the extreme. So actually, whatever corpses are going to mean, they're going to mean all kinds of things. Right, but now you have a huge extreme, right? A corpse is something that's finished its life, right? And an embryo is something that hasn't begun its life. So this is also what she holds in her earrings is the full spectrum of human existence, from birth to death, from before birth. It's not from birth to death. That's a simple, right? It's before birth as an embryo and beyond death as a corpse, right? That's a very big extreme. So she holds the full thing. And by saying sun and moon is saying almost the same thing. The full extreme, the two extremes, right? And everything in between, right? Some have said, I don't know, I can't quote from Shastra these things, but it's been explained to me by devotees, yogi, sadhus, they've given this interpretation. I'm remembering from oral tradition. I don't know if it's textual or not, but it's oral tradition for sure. He says that before, and yogis also say that the first sense to develop is hearing, and there's many stories that even in the womb, Prahlad Maharaj heard Om Namo Narayana in the womb, and that was sufficient. Of course, he had some past, right, and he heard teachings of Narayana and who he heard it from, but he heard that even while in the mother's womb, right? He heard, and benefit even before birth, he would already illumined soul, a pure soul. And it also says that after death, one should, like in the Ramakrishna tradition, when somebody dies, when a sadhu dies, they start Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna. This goes on continuously until the body is cremated, right? Three things: Hari Om Ramakrishna starts, then Vedic chanting, Upanishadic chanting is recited, and Kirtan sung simultaneously. I mean, a huge world of sound, right? Because the soul will hear. Right, and in North India, due to the influence of Tulsidas and the like, they carried dead body. Ram Nam Satya Hai, Ram Nam Satya Hai. Right, it's good for us also. Remember that when we see a dead body, to know the only thing that lasts, the only true thing, is Ram's name, but it's being told to the soul that's in or around the body. They believe that they can still hear. Before birth and after death, you can still hear. In Bengal, it's Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. It is. They carry the dead body. They don't just carry the dead body. They sing God's names to the dead body. Right? There's a story of a wonderful saint, a wonderful, colorful saint named Radharaman Charandev. He's wonderful. And there's a scene where he was going to take a bath in a tank, and he saw they were doing some cremation for somebody at the other end. So he says to his disciple, who is Navadvip Das, is a very enthusiastic disciple, go and tell him not to light the funeral pyre. I'm coming after my bath. So he goes, please don't mind, my Babaji Maharaj, my Guru Maharaj wants to come, please wait a few minutes. So they wait, right? And he goes, and with all the disciples, and he grabs the toes of the lady on the fire and goes, Bajai Nitai Go Radhe Sham, and he opens her eyes, right? And sits up, right? He says, Kirtan. So the disciples started singing, Bajai Nitai Go Radhe Sham, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. This is the mantra that Durga revealed to him, right? They did kirtan 10-15 minutes, then she let go of her toes, she closed her eyes, went back, he said, okay, light the fire, no problem, right? Because she had never heard the holy name carefully. We've all heard the holy name, the devotees are singing kirtan, we've heard, you cannot not hear the holy name, but she hadn't, but this time she was ready to listen, because she was in that world where this is really important. Hey, listen, sit up, listen what we have to say. You can, the sense of hearing is still there. So this was told to me by one sadhu, that the corpse, embryo corpse, and the earrings represent one of the meanings given. The temporary meaning of the sound is before birth, and this is the first and final sense to leave. Preta-pāṇisumekhalā. Preta-pāṇisumekhalā. So next detail, preta again here means corpse, right? But it doesn't just mean corpse, it means a lot. Pāṇisumekhalā. Pani here means hands or arms, right? This is how it's being used here. Sumekhalā. Sumekhalā has a couple meanings. Here it means well girdled, right? Girdle, either well covered girdle, like a girdle, or a beautiful girdle. Right, so I think she's well girdled, or she's beautifully girdled by what? By hands of corpses. That's an interesting image, right? Right, and so you see in many paintings, you probably have seen paintings of Kali. This is a common detail, right? It's interesting. We were discussing today. I was thinking driving back. I had to go to Costa Mesa earlier to do some work, and driving back, this name was in my mind. I'll have to say something about. She has a girdled. It's like it's not something just like, have you heard about Kali? She has a girdle of arms made of severed arms from corpses. It's not the opening thing you say about the divine. But then I'm remembering that in Dakshineshwar, right, she doesn't have a girdle of arms, because by the request of Rani Rasmini, the founders of the temple, she said she didn't like the idea of any male demonic body, men touching the Divine Mother. And also because it's a very private place, around the waist. Right, she didn't like it. She leave it out. So although it's one of the few images in Bengal of this traditional Dakshina Kali, that the carving is not. There's no severed arms, a girdle of severed arms. Even in M's Master Mahashaya's Katamrita, in the first chapter, he describes the Kali. He describes, and she's beautifully covered with severed arms. And we're thinking, but we know it's not true. But at that time, books detailing that history haven't been printed yet, and he's only seen her covered, right? You get to Dakshineshwar, you'd never see Ma not covered in saris like that. So he'd assumed that she's also wearing. So it's described in the book that she's wearing a girdle carved, but it's not there. It's not. Only with little detail. No, it's just not. The girdle is not there. Have separate arms. But most paintings you see will have that. No, almost all paintings, right? There's one of the distinctive. If she's uncovered, you'll see a girdle of hands. She's never uncovered. She has like this. But what could this mean? Preta-pāṇisumekhalā. Right. So simple thing is one thing you can think. Oh, that she's cut off the hands of demons who are doing harm to the world, and she wears that. That's a simple. And there's stories like that. Like why does Shiva have a tiger skin? right? Or a elephant skin, right? There's stories and where they created a tiger and threw at him to attack him, and so he skins a tiger and wraps it around the thing. They threw an elephant at him, he does that, and he wraps the elephant. So it could be answers like that. The demons, she is from the power of the demon that thinks they're so big, she makes a garment of that, showing she controls that, right? These things have deep symbolism, and this is one possible meaning. That meaning is given in some text, right? But the more simple approach is that hands represent karmas, right? And so she wears the results of all karmas. That's one thing we can think. All actions, actually, hands represent actions and their results, right? That's really how this verse is and how this name has been interpreted. So she wears the results, and she's actions and the results mean she wears the cause and the effects of everything. That's another way of saying it. So represent karma, and karma means the work, the action, and the result, the karma. There's the action and the fruit of action. This is represented by this, right? And it says it also means that the results, yogis have said, the results of all actions go to her, right? She's a beneficiary of everything. Everything we're doing for her. But also we learn she's the Shakti behind everything, so she's the one doing everything. She's all action, and all actions go to her, right? But so I don't have on this the other day when I thought I was going to give this class last week before Swami Bhajanananda came and gave a surprise satsang. All I had for my notes, it says deep repercussions. So I have to remember what deep repercussion is. So I remember what deep repercussion means. I think deep repercussions. This means actually that if all our actions and the results are on her, right? Which is a very deep thing, right? I mean, these hands are touching her. Everything we're doing is to her. Whatever the symbolism in, how do we take it personally? How do we internalize this? How do we think this, right? This is showing us that if all of our actions are touching her, are being done to her, right? We have to be very careful how we act, right? This is a very, very big thing. And she's cut off the hands of demons in other texts, right? So not everybody touches her properly. This is the problem, right? And in the story of Draupadi, we mentioned Draupadi in the beginning, right? It was the mukta-keśī and like that, right? In the story, they're trying to undress her, right? And unlimited saris are provided. We know that story. It's a very deep story, multi-level story. But there's one, I forget where I read it, but some contemporary writer talking, I forget who, contemporary popular writer, not a scholarly writer, but he made a very interesting point. He says that, but with her husband, the sari comes right off, right? There's a difference. What's the difference? The same act of removing a sari, right? One's trying to forcibly take, the other is out of devotion, out of affection. What a very big difference, right? So how you approach, we can take this very deep. How do we approach the Divine Mother? Everything we do is her body. Everything is her body. She's the cause and effect of everything. Everything's touching her. So should we touch her like a demon, or should we touch her like a devotee, right? And not only the devotee, you touch her as a child. The option here is actually she already has a husband. We're not her husband. That's Shiva, right? To be very clear in this cluster of names that she has no other interest than in Shiva. So all of us, who are we then? We're either demons or children. And for children, we're all children. We're all her children. But how do we approach? How do we approach knowing that there's good children and bad children? There's respectful children and disrespectful children. Dushti chele or naughty children, and so you can see how do we approach. And so there's a beautiful verse in the Chandi. I don't remember the Sanskrit, but I think about this verse a lot. I quote this verse a lot. It says in one of the hymns, it says, both gods and demons touch your feet. Right. This story because both gods and demons worship the Devi, but this is also everyone touches her feet. She's Mahadevi, Mahasuri. She's the great goddess and the great demon. She's everything. Everything's part of it. But everyone touches her, only her. Everyone, whatever we do, we're touching her feet. Both gods and demons touch her feet. Of course, we're trying to do it as devotees, not as demons, right? But even her love, her motherly love, even for demons, in the same Chandi, it's when they're praising in the Shakrari Stuti, they say that these demons have done enough sin to legitimately warrant long suffering in hell. right? They've done horror. They're monsters. They're historically they're monsters, and internally they're horrible qualities. These are not. But you think, let them be liberated by dying at my hands, and therefore, Mother, you direct your divine weapons towards them, right? So rather than, because when the Divine Mother kills them, they become liberated, rather than going to. So she said, your compassion even to them, right? Your mother heart is. How are we doing inside, Samaji? Okay, we have to close shortly. I'm getting the cane. So, well, the demons that attack her and and all the stories, they also become liberated. But it doesn't mean we should become demons, right? That's the thing. Is like how much more. The people who love her, if even demons who fight the Divine Mother, who attack the Divine Mother, get liberation, right? What to speak of her devotees, her children, those who love her and worship her and respect her, right? This is my deep repercussions of the hands on the body. Some commentary. So in my notes it says everything is done by her and to her. These 2 points, if you remember these 2 points, it changes everything. Right? So actually, this will be, we'll have to see where in the verse are we. This works. Preta-deha-karṇa-pūrā, preta-pāṇisumekhalā. She who has, So the next week I'm going to be traveling. I won't be here. The following week, I either will continue from this. I'm not sure. I'll post it in a few days. Whether we'll continue these names because we're in mid verse, or go back to. We've been going back and forth between Bhagavatam and Kali Sahasranama. We'll see. Is that because this is a cluster? I don't want to. If I wait 2 weeks again before we'll move on. Eventually, we'll move on from the corpses. So we want to finish the theme as we're developing the ideas. But the next time is. I lost my verses here. Pretasana, priya preta, preta-bhumi kritālaya. So pretasana is very important. This is the one I've been thinking about last 2 weeks, but I didn't get to it. So I'll get to think about it for another 2 weeks, and I'll really say something neat about God willing. Huh? Shavasana is a modern description of a yoga pose. This is something slightly different, but it can be. Right, you'll see. We'll see. It is a very deep pretasana, preta-priya, and preta-bhumi-kritālaya. And she who sits upon a corpse, she who is beloved or dear to corpses. We'll see what that means. And and she who dwells happily in the land, a place of corpse. It means cremate. It means cremate. And actually, the next line in the next verse says smashana nilaya or something like that. She who dwells in it. So it's the next is moving into smashan. Description. But anyways, we'll leave it with these. So we described her hair and her earrings, and some of her jewelry today, unique jewelry. In the Ramakrishna Katamrita, M goes into, he describes very elaborately Madh Bhavattarini's jewelry, right? She also describes the severed heads and everything like that. But describing the jewelry that she wears. A lot of it, we don't even have names for that anymore. This jewelry is, they're antiques. They don't make them anymore. Certain types of, we had to do a lot of research, and Lopa luckily had some interest, and so she knew some of these, what they were, how to describe jewelry that doesn't exist anymore. But this is the jewelry we put on her, right? She has her own jewelry. This is what we're describing. Thank you for your kind attention. Any comments or questions or flat out rebuttals?
Does preta also mean ghost?
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Preta means ghost, it means demon, it means angry spirit. But here you have to know by context. It means it means corpse, and it doesn't mean the corpse is. Preta means corpse, and the corpse is a symbol for other things. And it's a cluster name. They have some shared meaning and some completely distinct meaning. So we have to know the language of the Kali iconography. Right. But I love this next section in Predasana. This is very beautiful, and so many texts will describe it. But anything else? We'll go for Arati. okay. Perfect timing then. I guess I'm also low batteries. Like, okay. It's been a wonderful and long day. Jai Ma Kali, Jai Thakur, Jai Ma. Okay. Anybody know how to turn this off? Probably. Can you take this to Swami Ambikananda and tell him I don't want to turn it off in a way. I remember the old one, but I don't know this one. Oop. I forgot that I burned my.
Yeah, exactly. Don't burn it.
Preta-pāṇisumekhalā.
Thank you, dear.